What's going on, everybody? We are back once again with another edition of Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. I'm your host, Clark Taylor. It is Saturday, July 22nd. We are fresh off of a fun Friday night filled with professional wrestling. We had Ring of Honor last night. We had SmackDown last night. And I've got three of my most esteemed colleagues riding with me today to break it all down for you guys. First up, let's start with head of reviewing, the guy that put in way too much work last night, reviewing shows all the way from Regina, Canada. Coby Galenzoski, how are you on this Saturday, my good buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. Feels like every time I have to do a reviewing show for Monday Night Raw or just the pay-per-views in general, I'm always procrastinating writing the actual review until I ended up posting Ring of Honors last night at about 3 o'clock in the morning about that. I'm always putting in the late hours with my reviews, but at the end of the day, like you said, it was 5 hours of action-packed wrestling. It was enjoyable night for the wrestling fan who was able to watch Ring of Honor fully and then the SmackDown after. But it was a really good night. Spent it with the boys, and what more can you ask for?
We really did have a blast, and with that, we up next from over in the UK. We got David Sheldon back in the building. How are you today? Did you enjoy the shows last night? I know you got a little early night's sleep, but you did get to rewatch them in the end, right?
Yes, I did. Hello, everybody. Yes, I took some rest time last night. I was intending to stay up and watch Death Before Dishonor live. Unfortunately, my body told me to sleep because UK times suck. But yeah, it's very excited to talk about these shows. A pretty good episode of SmackDown as well to talk about. And we're not talking about it, but a episode of Rampage. I'll leave it there.
Rampage happened too. That's an excellent point. And last but absolutely not least, good friend from Texas, Ignacio. Dude, good to have you with the fresh equipment too. Looking good. I love it.
Yeah, great to be here. So we're going to be talking about Death Before Dishonor and a little bit on SmackDown, correct?
Yes, sir.
So pretty up and down week for me. So I had a good morning this morning. Went for a nice walk with my girlfriend, and we went to the grocery store, which I enjoyed tremendously. I love grocery shopping.
Same.
So I had to calm down from the week and I have Ben to partially blame from this. So I just got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes.
Oh.
And the reason for I have Ben to buy is because he makes me watch shows like this Death Before Dishonor show. And when I'm watching shitty wrestling, I crave sugar, and I have to drown myself in sugar to try to alleviate some of the pressure or madness that goes on in my head while watching this shameful show that was Death Before Dishonor. So I'm going to be sending all my medical bills regarding my type 2 diabetes to Ben Allison. Directly to Ben and Wrestling Republic, and they have to cover my medical costs.
Did you hear that, Ben, by the way? That is your fault. You're out here causing diseases. This is your fault, Ben. With that, we got a comment from my good buddy Brent McLean, AK and Killer B, both in the house. Thank you guys for joining us today. Oh, Ignacio, that's too funny. I did not see that coming.
I did.
But let's talk about Ring of Honor. I mean, heck of a show last night, right? We saw a main event that we will get into here later. David is going to talk about between Athena and Willow. That was off the charts. We saw Claudio versus off the charts. We saw the Righteous versus the Dark Order. That was off the charts. Let's start with Righteous versus Dark Order. I enjoyed the entrance. Coby, what did you think about the match? What'd you rate it, though, in the end?
Okay, yeah. So at the end of the day, I think I was shocked it went as late as it did in the show. This was a match that I was like, okay, this is it. It's not for a title. It doesn't have to go early on. It can go early on. It doesn't have to go very late. But it was the third last match, so it was without a doubt in the second half of the mid card. At the end of the day, I did rate it the second highest match of the show at 4.75 out of 5. I thought this was just a really well done and enjoyable street fight. Everyone had their chance to shine in the match. Everyone got their spots, and this felt like a proper brawl and street fight. And I mean, I share my criticisms surrounding how this year's Blood and Guts went. This was much better than Blood and Guts this year. I truly believe that. This felt like it was a legitimate brawl, a legitimate street fight between all of the men, and they weren't gonna like. I'm not seeing a Young Buck climb a cage or a Dark Order member climbing the cage just to drop some tax over some people. No, I mean. At the end of the day, this was a much better match. I personally believe, aside from the crowd that I didn't think was a 1-star crowd, I think it was a flawless match and very enjoyable with the right amount of spots.
Okay, that's interesting, no doubt. I'm going to toss it directly to Ignacio because I know what he's going to say following up your comments here about the Young Bucks and what happened at Blood and Guts. By comparison, these two matches, we had the Righteous versus the Dark Order last night. Did you see it, Ignacio? What did you think by comparison to Blood and Guts? Which was the better match?
Well, I think they were both garbage. It's just Blood and Guts was just, it was awful. It was embarrassing. First of all, nobody has done the War Games concept, not even WWE and NXT. I think the best one they've done was last year with the Bloodline. And for what it was the story that drove the match. The match itself was not great. It was okay, but nobody's done the Dusty Rhodes War Games concept like it has been done in the 80s, like it was done in the 80s. Not when WWE started doing it, definitely not in AEW. So they should just stop doing it unless they're going to go with the original concept and the original rules and the original story that plays up to the match, when you have either one faction or two that are in direct conflict with each other and have a good story leading up to the match, or a faction like the Four Horsemen that was dominating the majority of the 80s and had all the titles and so forth and were the heels. No question about it that they were heels against one of the biggest baby faces in history of that time, Dusty Rhodes, and the biggest, the Hulk Hogan of tag teams at that time, the Road Warriors. And then you had Nikita Koloff, who was getting the rub off of Dusty. And it was all these elements together put in one match, and it was a unique concept and that Dusty came up with, and it was great for the time. But nobody's been able to replicate that, and definitely not Tony Khan and AEW. It was trash, garbage. I like Vincent in AEW. I think out of everybody in that match, he has the most potential to come out as a star because of the way he comes out in promos. But this match was as indie as you can get, and indie in a bad way. Indie used to mean something good, doesn't anymore. They were both garbage. I would rather not see any of these people wrestling again, and I hope I don't.
It's not the 80s anymore, Ignacio. Sammartino has retired.
Those are strong words. I hear that, though. I mean, I disagree with some. I agree with some. It's one of those. I enjoyed both. I don't know. The Vincent thing cracked me up that you mentioned him. I don't know if it's just the snapping, right? I'm a fan of the snapping.
Yeah.
Like it's just funny when he does the entrance with like it gets me. I don't know why.
I just think with
go ahead.
Kind of the persona that he gives off, it's kind of really like WWE can kind of work with him, and because he's got the charisma and the promo skills kind of, and I think if like he went somewhere with WWE where they have good character development, they can do something with him. But everybody else is just dime a dozen, go to a local indie show, and that's who they are, and whatever. Nothing special.
I wouldn't quite go that far, and I know David shares some of those sentiments, and that's why I saved him for last. So, David, let's hear the other side, my friend.
Look, respectfully, Ignacio, I don't really know what you want. What you've just complained about is that Dusty Rhodes back in the 80s had a clearly defined heel team, a clearly defined face team that had a months-long story, which is exactly the same thing that Blood and Guts had. I'm back. Sorry, I managed to unmute my microphone there. Is that Blood and Guts wasn't perfect. I had my many issues with Blood and Guts. I outlined those in the review that I made. I just find it. We're not in 1989 anymore. Dusty Rhodes. These guys aren't around anymore. We have to move on. And I don't really know specifically what you're after. If that's and again, there were some really stupid spots in Blood and Guts. I called those out myself and saying they were a bit silly. I think the tax spot Coby mentioned was fine because it's wrestling. We had Vikings on Monday. We've had undead zombies. We've had Bastion boogers. We've had all these things. I don't get where the line of sense is drawn in professional wrestling, but I don't really I can't really compute that logic. But yeah, I just want to say quickly on the trios match from Death Before Dishonor, it's nice to see a match that has been built on ROH, because ROH, the problem that we've had sometimes with stories with regards to Ring of Honor is that a lot of these matches got shambled together quite last minute. So it's like, or they've been Dynamite feuds or feuds elsewhere. So it's nice to see something that's had weekly Ring of Honor build get a Ring of Honor ending with the fight without honor. Yeah, I really liked it.
No question. I hear you. I'm probably somewhere in the middle. I didn't love it or hate it. I thought it was just a little bit better than average. I thought it was good, right? Maybe not great. I don't know. Ignacio, if you have one more thing to add, you totally can, but we do have the 2 more ROH matches to cover. So I figure we get into those and kind of toss it around the horn that way. Okay. Is that cool? Sound good?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Just now that I'm looking at the time, let's talk about the Righteous versus the Dark Order, which we already talked about. Sorry, Coby. You got to list these topics better next time. I'm kidding. I like to blame Coby for everything once a show. Claudio versus Pac for the ROH World title. Coby and Cody. Both Coby and Cody. Now this is a tongue twister at this point. But we had Claudio versus Pac for the ROH World Championship. I'm going to start with Ignacio, then I'm going to go to David, then I'm going to go to Coby. What were your thoughts on this match? Ignacio, did you like this one a little bit better than the last one we talked about?
I like both guys. I like Claudio and I like Pac. I like Pac. Pac does the high flying twirl to whirl BS, But the thing is Pac can adapt to styles. Like he wrestled Claudio yesterday, so it was more of a wrestling match, and he had some aerial assaults. But for the most part, it's like Rey Mysterio. When he does it, it makes sense in a way. But let's say if Pac wrestled Commander, well, then he's going to wrestle Commander's type of match, and it's going to be an acrobatic, spot fest, whatever. But I think, first of all, I think it was bad match placement. Because I think the crowd for what it was, they were kind of up and down for this match because they just finished watching that disaster of a street fight or no dishonor match or whatever they want to call it nowadays or whatever they call it. So they watched everybody get run through everything besides a fucking razor blade factory. And the match starts out okay, kind of slow, methodical, whatever, but they're moving kind of slow. And then Pac takes the table out, and I'm like, oh, more furniture, because we just seen everything but the kitchen sink tables, tacks, barbed wire tables, and here's another table. Got to do another table spot. But then they work up to the table, and Claudio picks him up for a press slam, and chunks Pac at the table, and it was a good visual. I liked it. It was a good spot, so I'll give him that. We had already seen everything before in this match, and they utilized the table a little bit differently with a good spot. I'll give them credit for that. That was a good visual because Pac is a heavy guy. I mean, he looks small, right?
He's dense,
but he's solid. I mean, there's no way he's under 200 pounds.
I don't
Like
so.
they've announced it before. He's not, dude. He's like a solid 215, 220. I think so. I don't know. I've never seen him in person, but he's a heavy guy, and Claudio chunked them out of the ring, and it was just an amazing visual. Other than that, I mean, it was an okay match. I don't think it was great. Definitely not, in my opinion, not their best work. I thought it could have been better, but they had that match on Wednesday, right? And tired, travel, all this stuff, and you say they're professional, they should be used to it by now, bro. They're older, Claudio's not old, but he's older, and he's been working for a long time, and they've probably been dealing with injuries. Pac's been plagued with injuries, so they're not going to have the match that they might have had 5 years ago. Definitely not 10 years ago. Definitely not 15 years ago. So, I mean, to me, it was the best match of the night, but that's not saying much because I thought the pay-per-view was absolutely awful. I thought the finish was bland, not very good. So that's that.
So one thing I will bring up, and you talked about Pac and the aerial stuff and kind of gave him a pass a bit, and I agree with you on he's built like a fire hydrant, right? He's dense and he's solid. It's different when he's aerial. One thing I will say about Pac, because I actually like some of the flips and aerial stuff when it fits, when it makes sense. One thing I will say about Pac, and I said this on the podcast earlier this week, the Black Arrow is one of the most difficult moves I've ever seen to pulled off the top rope, and he somehow delivers it the same way every time, like an acrobat. That level of athleticism adds believability to a top rope move. That one I think is fair. I'm cool with that one, and some of the stuff he does, and he works stiff enough that I don't actually include him in the category kind of that you were implying there of guys that just kind of abuse the aerial part of it, right?
No, he doesn't.
We could list off names. I don't include him in that. I believe he's a fully versatile pro wrestler that is happens to be athletic enough to pull off those type of spots.
Yeah, that's what I say. If he has a match with Commander or Vikingo or any of those guys, it's gonna be an aerial spot fest.
I still think he could stiff Commander or Vikingo in a way that other guys that are capable of doing what Pac is aerially can't. And it adds a level of believability. You know what I'm saying? Right?
I got you.
But with that, I'm going to toss it to you, David. I know you're a fan of both wrestlers. How did you feel about this match? From what you saw, do you think there's a future for this rivalry, or do you think this is kind of a one-off?
I'm going to be completely honest with you here, and this is incredibly unprofessional of me. We're going to have to throw this one straight to Coby because this is the one match that I haven't seen.
No worries.
I got right to the point of the match before. Didn't get a chance to see this one because I had to skip to Athena versus Willow because that was my lead.
That's my apologies for putting you on the spot there.
Sorry about that, guys. That's very unprofessional of me.
That's a suspension. Shouldn't he be suspended from the podcast?
No, honestly, we should be for spoiling the result for him.
I will see it tonight. I promise I will see it tonight.
Okay, I mean, so I just want to say, Ben Allison, I was right. We did see a Wheeler Yuta appearance. And Wheeler Yuta is the reason Pac lost, and I really like that. I thought it was an interesting way that, like, okay, best friends are coming out, and then we saw an Orange Cassidy appearance, and we saw the Lucha Brothers came out, then the best friends, based off of what happened earlier, came out. It's a weird, I don't want to almost say a trios rivalry, but it's almost like a weird three-way tag rivalry that happened. But I agree with everything. It was a solid match for what it was, but I don't think it was as tremendous as it could have been. Keep in mind, like you said, they're not going to have the same match 20 years ago. Well, they're not, because they also have that experience under the belt. At the end of the day, it was real. I thought it was a good match. I really liked the visual. I think Pac is that versatile wrestler. Claudio works the strongman, works the technical wrestler. I thought it was good for what it needed to be, and I'm glad it actually wasn't the main event myself.
I hear that for sure, and we could have the debate about the main event thing and card placement too.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the actual main event, because I'm gonna say this myself. I thought this was the match of the night by far. It's not the match I expected to be the match of the night, but it delivered. It over-delivered in my eyes. Willow Nightingale is that good. I really, truly, I don't care what you think about the big smile on the entrance or whatever. She is so legit as a powerhouse. There was a sequence late in the match where she rolled through into a running power slam and deadlifted Athena. It was impressive, as all impressive on both ends. Everything was clean to deliver the Eclipse or the O-Face, whichever you'd like to call it, twice that clean. That is a difficult move to deliver, like a flip stunner off the top rope 2 times and make it look more violent the second time around. I was blown away by, personally. I thought both women came out of this looking as good as gold, and I enjoyed this more than I expected. I was surprised by it. David, do you echo some of the same sentiments? How did you feel about it? We do know that you did see this one.
I definitely did see this one, 100%. Isn't it amazing what Tony Khan? It's not that hard, Tony. You can book women for longer than a minute. It is possible. Blinking heck. But yes, this 100% deserved the main event spot. It's been a very well-built feud across ROH and AEW with the Owen Hart Cup semi-final. I thought this was really, really effectively kind of put together. If I was to quibble, I'd say I could have used it given a few more minutes. It went 20, which is, more than enough time, but it just took maybe a couple more in the middle. It built to the Eclipse kick out, and even though by the time I'd seen the show this afternoon, I knew that Athena had retained the title, that Eclipse kick out still got me, which is very impressive. It still made me kind of leap. Both these women are more powerhouse-like based wrestlers, so you really got that weight to every move. It didn't feel kind of weightless. Everything, it was and considering how kind of big, and hitty it was very clean. I really like the finish as well of the second Eclipse into the crossface and her passing out in that. That was excellent. My only other complaint, and it's so minor, there are two, and they're like, this is really nitpicking, is there's one point that she got pinned down for ages before a powerbomb, where the referee probably could have counted to 10 rather than 3 while they were trying to sort their arms out to get the powerbomb spot. Nitpicking doesn't impact anything. And the other thing is, Willow is such a good 2.9 kick out artist that I kind of wish that Athena had done the same for the gut wrench power slam kick out. She kind of kicked out at 2, which didn't have the kind of impact that it could have had. Those are such minor complaints that they really do mean nothing in the grand scheme of things. Really good choice to main event. Really like the match. Really like the both these women working together. Surprised Willow didn't win, but Athena is so good, I'm really not bothered. If Tony Khan can take lessons from this and give the women some time, you'll see that you can actually have really, really good women's wrestling. Tony, please, Tony, please.
I really love a few of the things you said too, especially about like the weight of the match, the stiffness. Willow threw a forearm when they were up on the top rope, and I don't know if it was leg slap or if she really cracked her on the chin, but it was the way it was delivered. It was so clean, and the selling from Athena was it was a beautiful, simple moment, right? They teased a superplex of sorts or a top rope move, and it was just a big forearm back in the audio and the crowd reaction. I mean, she looked like she got leveled, right? It was just gorgeous. It was classic wrestling in that sense. It was 101 strong style, right? And I don't even think she got potatoed. It was just that beautifully delivered. With that, Ignacio, I'm going to toss it to you. Did you enjoy this one finally as well?
I like that. I'll agree with what you said about Willow Nightingale. She definitely has a connection with the crowd, because of her energy and her charisma. She definitely has all that. I think she's developing into a good worker. They got something with her, and I wasn't at first. I wasn't too keen on her winning the Owen Hart tournament,
Yep.
but the Owen Hart Cup. But I just Tony, they got to push somebody different, and they got to start making stars, right? So why not Willow Nightingale? Because Ruby Soho didn't really need it. You know, that group, the Outcast or whatever they call themselves, I mean, I kind of like them a little bit. I like them better than Damage Control. You know, they're probably getting the heat that Damage Control should be getting. But, you know, I like that little group. Toni Storm's got more personality. Saraya probably not able to wrestle as much because of her injuries and so forth that she's had. So I think I like that little group. But, you know, Ruby Soho didn't need it. Willow Nightingale did. So I'm glad they went there with her. And it looks like she's developing into a good wrestler, a good worker. So I think she's somebody to look out for, somebody that can count on to carry the division, not right away, but let's say a year or 2 years from now. I can really see her growing if they book her well enough. If they get somebody that can book her well or has enough sense to book her well and build stars, you know, around her, a good supporting cast, if you will, around her, where she's going to be able to get over. But, you know, in me, that's only going to happen in WWE. So, you know, maybe she should just wait for her contract to run out. But anyway, the match, Athena, not really big Athena fan, you know, at all, really. Never thought she was a really big deal. Never thought she was a really big deal in NXT. Or when she went to the main roster, you can say that was booking. I just don't think she's as great as everybody says or thinks she is. And I thought the match was you know, too many false finishes at the end, one after another. Just can't take Athena seriously. So maybe you can say I'm biased or whatever, just because I don't like her and I don't like her work. But I see a lot of potential in Willow Nightingale, and you know, for what it was, I guess it was okay for a women's match when an ROH or AEW Dynamite or whatever. But it just, you know, do I feel it should have been the main event? No, but you know, but it's
okay,
you know.
But given that Willow stood out so much, at least in your eyes, wouldn't you agree that it was worth giving her that exposure in that spot? Because there are some people watching, even I understand your opinion on the card isn't any good, right? But at the end of the day, you have, like you said, you got something with Willow. Giving her a main event spot, I don't see the downside on that, right? Even in the loss there. Right, coming out of it,
I don't think. Well,
view Willow as a star.
I think she has potential, and they should probably give her as much exposure, TV time, wrestling time, house show time. If they really want to push her and put their cards on her, I really do think she should get the exposure that as much as they can to her. Yes.
And I think a lot of us agree with that too at Wrestling Republic in general. Big Willow Nightingale fans. Yes. I think she's put in some awesome work. Coby, what were your thoughts on this one? Then we'll get into SmackDown.
I thought this was the second best women's match of the year. Obviously, we all know Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley is number one. I thought this match was very well done. I didn't see the first one, but I was there live for the second one that Willow won in the Owen Hart Cup semifinal. I thought it naturally, from match to match, there was the increase. Their chemistry is growing from this match, from last match, the semifinal to now. They were really able to deal with the time they were given. It's not even my main concern. My main food for thought is if you're sitting there saying this is going to be the marquee match, this is going to be the main event of Death Before Dishonor, and you're sitting there on preparing Dynamite, and you're saying I'd rather see Britt Baker have a squash match. I don't know who pitched it. I don't know anything of that. I don't know who to blame, but if you're giving such a big spot to Athena versus Willow Nightingale, a match that was pretty much built for the last 2 weeks on your television, and you fail to mention it or give it any more importance that it would need to be bigger than it already was. If you promote that match on Dynamite as the main event of Death Before Dishonor, as the third tiebreaker match between the two of them, if you chose to air a promo package or do a promo with either of them on Dynamite instead of that squash match, I think you put a lot more eyes on the match itself, on the product, whatever you want to view it. I don't get it.
I agree.
In that position.
I agree 1000%. And but I will say this, and this is not you at all, but we have seen so many complaints about separate ROH and AEW. It is kind of funny that we're now looking back in hindsight and going, why didn't they build this on Dynamite?
Well, better than build something than nothing at all.
Right?
Which is what Dynamite did.
Exactly. I agree. Could not agree more. I'm with that. With that, we'll put ROH to rest right now and
Thank God.
get directly into. Dang it, Ignacio! I knew that was coming. By the way, that was the most predictable chirp in a good amount of time, but I respect it. We'll get into SmackDown. We know you didn't like it, Ignacio, but I mean ROH. We'll get into SmackDown now, and let's start with the U.S. title scene. Speaking of things people don't like, I'm done with Austin Theory holding the U.S. title. I have been for a long time. I was done with it when he won it. I was done with it when the briefcase thing happened. I've been done with it for a long time. Theoretically, we could have just done without all of it. It's ridiculous. And now we're in a position where we've got an LWO versus LWO matchup. I don't get it. I don't understand it. We criticize booking in other promotions often, and when I say we, I'm not including myself, but this is ridiculous. I don't get it. There was one logical winner of last night's Fatal 4-Way, and that is LA Knight. What in the world are we doing? LA Knight is the most over wrestler on the SmackDown roster, period. At least of the ones that appear weekly, because outside of Roman Reigns, unless you think Jey Uso is more over than LA Knight, which is not the case currently, he's just not. Jey Uso is as over as Jey Uso is, and that's no knock on him. He's great. He's as over as he is because of the Bloodline storyline. LA Knight is over on just pure it factor. Push the button. What are we doing? I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it. I'm going to toss it to Coby and then David, and then I'm going to toss it to Ignacio, and that's all I have to say about this match.
I mean, at the end of the day, I thought it was a solid 4-way. I mean, both matches were able to showcase all the guys correctly, and then especially just the picture. I thought it was odd they're going to have Theory go to Adam Pearce and say, well, I want Santos Escobar. And Adam's like, okay, for a title match. And he's like, well, no, he's going to face Ray next week. And it's like, okay, well, at least they didn't go championship contenders match. They just made it a non-title match. I like that part. Both matches were solid. This is what I have to say. I wonder if WWE isn't saying that the U.S. title match that the winner the winner of the finals gets is at SummerSlam, because it's not. I wonder if that's the day before SmackDown match and then something happens. I don't know, but the biggest thing I want to put into the air or put into the atmosphere is I don't think LA Knight won simply because SmackDown wasn't on their normal channel. They were on FS1. They weren't on Fox. In terms of the wide variety of their audience, wouldn't have seen LA Knight get the big victory. I wonder if that played into effect. I'd like to say that's the real answer, but I have no idea if it actually is.
Great point, Coby. I did not even consider that as a possibility. This was an interesting one. I think we leave this where it is, unless you guys have anything you really want to add. Go right ahead, David, and then
Ignacio. Very quickly.
Go ahead.
I'd like to very quickly tell you all the story of the fans who cried Knight. Once the WWE said, we're going to put LA Knight in Money in the Bank, and all the fans got really excited, and then WWE went, no, we're going to give it to Damian Priest instead. And then a few weeks later, WWE said, oh, now we're going to put LA Knight in a US invitation, in a US tournament. They could see him win the US title. And all the fans went, yes, please. And then the fans, WWE turned around and went, no, we're not. We're going for Escobar versus Mysterio. I fear that when WWE finally do, if they do pull the trigger on LA Knight a few months down the line, fans might go, well, you've told us this so many times before and haven't delivered on it, so we don't actually really care anymore. And then when they finally do give it, the moment's gone and it's wasted. And that's all I will say.
I hear you there. Ignacio, anything to add?
Yeah, it's just kind of like, bro, if they're okay, so what happened, but it's just kind of like, okay, well then what are they going to do with LA Knight for SummerSlam? Because he's got to be on the card, right? They can't just ignore like what's going on. I mean, they
did it with Zack. They did it with Zack Ryder. They'll do it with.
They I understand. Yeah, I get it, but it's just like, hey, this is a time where like a CM Punk would be like, okay, well, I'm not gonna win tonight, but what am I doing for SummerSlam? And if I'm not gonna be on SummerSlam, well, then I'm not going out. I'm not gonna be in this match. And either I do something of relevancy, or I'm just gonna sit home.
I'm gonna take my ball and go home.
Yeah,
I agree. David, I'm gonna toss it right back to you. Let's get through this really quickly so we can talk Bloodline at the end of the show. Charlotte Flair versus Io Sky, the Bayley and Shotzi stuff. Your thoughts?
This was I was surprised to see when I woke up this morning that this was getting a lot of praise online. Seems like the two excellent workers. I went to see it. I think the match starts off very clunky. The women take a little bit of time to find their footing. There's the clip going around social media of the Hurricane Rana that does look really bad, but that's a one-off spot. That's fine, but it was kind of indicative of a slightly ropey first half. They massively got there by the end. The second half was really, really great, really entertaining. Like I said, the two women work very well together. The Shotzi thing on the Titantron, I was mixed on. I like my kind of crazy Shotzi, but it was filmed very weirdly. It was filmed a bit Blair Witchy and sort of very kind of modern horror of stuff sort of going around in it. And Bayley just disappearing and looking really freaked out was a bit thing, because I kind of laughed at it when I saw it. But the match finished well. Charlotte got a good win. Asuka got the attack afterwards. Good build for the triple threat of SummerSlam. Can't really complain. Yeah, all good.
Absolutely. Ignacio, I'm going to toss it straight to you, but about Dom versus Butch last night. That's Dirty Dom Mysterio. Your thoughts on that match?
Well, I think Dirty Dom, Dominic, just what they're doing with him is just genius with him and Ripley. It's just a combo that they needed for the time. You know, they're just tremendous together. The match was solid for a SmackDown match. You know, Butch always brings it. Pete Dunne always brings it, and he's stiff. But I think, my concern is, you know, and you guys probably talked about it earlier in the week, but so Dom won the North American title, and I think what they're trying to do is just only a third of the people, maybe less, that watch SmackDown watch NXT. So they're wondering, well, what's this title he has? And I think they don't have anything really solid for Dom to do right now. So they gave him the championship, and they're trying to keep him active. But I think what he should be doing is in a feud with an upper mid-card character or whatever. I'm afraid that he's got great heat right now. And I'm afraid that they're not going to use him appropriately. He's going to lose momentum. But now that he has the North American title, and apparently he's going to be defending it on SmackDown, because the brand split doesn't matter anymore, right? So apparently he's going to be on SmackDown defending the title, on Raw and on NXT. So he's going to get the exposure he needs to keep his heat. I just hope it's not too much, not too little, because he is, quote unquote, to take something from MJF, I guess, I really do think he's a generational talent, and that he's going to have great character development, and he's going to be a great character. He's not going to be a greatest worker as his dad. His claim to fame is going to be his character.
I actually really, really appreciate that opinion. That makes a lot of sense. While I've been critical of Dom, I do hear where you're coming from with that, though. Let's get into the Bloodline segment. I'm going to go Coby, David, and we'll finish with you, Ignacio. Before we go home at 45 minutes, Coby. Rules of engagement, we talked. There was the sitcom, there was the movie, right? You make your choice. David Spade, Samuel L. Jackson. It's up to you. I didn't see either of those, unfortunately, in last night's segment, but what I did see was an electric super kick on Solo, the weird Roman holding Solo thing back. I'm not sure. And Paul Heyman grabbing both the lei and the belt as he exited stage left. Shout out David. It was a fun segment. Coby, what did you think? Are you excited for the SummerSlam match? let's
Of course,
talk
I'm
about it.
excited. I mean, of course, I'm excited for the SummerSlam match. If any wrestling fans saying they're not, you're lying. At the end of the day, it didn't feel like a rules of engagement. They presented it like, oh, they're signing a contract, and then Jey Uso ripped it up. I like that. I really like the fact that Jey Uso was like, why do we need a contract? This isn't about contract. This is about our internal warfare. This is about our blood. This is about what we are dealing with as the bloodline. At the end of the day, aside from the obvious handshake between Roman and Jey, they didn't sell me on the indifference or importance of what tribal combat means. I'm sitting here and saying, okay, it's obviously a big thing where both of them are being very respectful of each other because it's like, okay, now they're presenting it with a great deal, but they didn't explain that. I liked Roman Reigns blocking Sikoa simply because it's like, okay, well now they're gonna go to tribal combat. Roman wants Jey Uso at his best, at his peak. He doesn't want this to be, oh, Jey Uso's damaged goods. I hope they don't go back on that and Uso's gonna take damage in the next 2 weeks of build.
Absolutely.
But I thought it was really good aside from that.
Especially with the Jimmy
Aside
injury.
from that,
David, your
explanation.
thoughts on this one?
I think this was a good segment. I think it could have been framed a bit better. Exactly as Coby said, I wanted a little bit more sort of explanation as to exactly what tribal combat is. I think that the interesting way to have done this and the interesting way to have framed it rather than just because basically it's no holds barred from the sounds of it, which is a bit boring considering what this could have been. I would have had this as almost a no ropes sort of Black Panther-esque fight to the death, where it's no weapons, just fists and blood and bones for that role of head of the table, for that sort of tribal
Almost
fight.
like blood sport.
Yes, but not quite with the kind of
Not the
amateur
exact
side of blood
same,
sport, but
yes.
kind of that sort of, yeah. I like the handshake. I think more should have been made of the handshake. I think that the solo thing was great. It would have been even better had they done a little bit more explanation in that promo. With that said, Jey Uso, I think, is unbelievably charismatic, and I loved him in this segment. That whole thing of, I might beat you with a chair, I might put you through the announce table, I might take that grandma's slipper from the front row. Awesome stuff. Loved that. Reigns was good as always. Jey really shined here. I just wanted a bit more emphasis on again, exactly as Coby said, sell me on that concept, sell me on that match. Again, as Coby said, if you're not excited for this match, you are lying, because this is years of build. I'm so excited for this match, and yeah, I think it's going to be an outstanding contest. Just wanted a little bit more in there.
I hear you 100%. Ignacio, straight to you. How did you feel about the segment last night, and are you excited for the match at SummerSlam?
I am excited for the match at SummerSlam. I think this is a great story. It's one of the best, or if not the best story getting played out on TV, and has been for 3 years, and that it's coming full circle. I don't think Jey Uso is the one to dethrone Roman or what have you, but I know nothing's going to be as good as story, and I don't know, probably everybody here is going to disagree. Nobody's going to be as more opportune or as good story as the Cody Rhodes story. But I don't think Jey Uso is the man now, but I think he has the potential to be the top guy, and I think maybe eventually he's going to get his chance. But they sold me as far as like the story. Our internal feud is more important than the world title. And if that's the case, then in my opinion, they should go. Maybe this wouldn't be for SummerSlam or a pay-per-view. Then they need to go street fight, but not street fight in the sense of a street fight. They need to go empty arena brawl match. And I think that would be a good big ratings draw.
I actually totally dig that, and it'd be really cool, I think, if they could almost put it on like a big show, the way they did the empty arena during the halftime of the Super Bowl.
Yes,
something like that. A special deal would be amazing. I love that idea. But with that, guys, that's going to bring us to the end of the show today. It's been a fun one. As usual, we will be back same time, same place tomorrow. That will be, first off, if you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do. It means the world to us. And if you can comment, that helps us out as well. If you're over on Spotify, a 5-star review would be delightful, but that's kind of up to you. And last but certainly not least, like I said before, we'll be back same time, same place, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, 8 o'clock over in the UK, and 9 a.m. Hawaiian Elysian time. To my friends, Have a good one. We will see you tomorrow.